After a thrilling May melee, with my Dallas Fuel taking the tourney championship, all eyes are towards the next mid-season tournament, the June Joust. Since the season has gone from 28 to 16 regular season games, every game really does matter now, and that includes the qualifying matches for the June Joust. Hell, Dallas only made it to the playoffs of the May melee by about one map win over Boston on Havana. With each game mattering so much, I thought it would be a good idea to dive into the schedules for the teams in the June Joust and see which had an advantage due to strength of schedule going into the knockout rounds. So the one factor that this list does not account for is the hero bans that are coming for the next tournament. The 4 teams that I think benefit the most are pretty meta-proof in my eyes anyway, but if there is a wild change, say to the extent of the Roadhog patch in Season 3 during the Grand Finals, I think that would skew my list a little bit, but I'm still pretty confident in the teams I've selected. So actually, I think the first team with the easiest schedule is going to be the reigning May Melee champs, the Dallas Fuel. The Fuel have the first week off, and then they play London and San Francisco in week 2, and then Florida and Vancouver in week 3. I think London and Vancouver should be pretty easy wins for the Fuel, considering they were 2 of the worst teams last month. San Francisco may raise some eyebrows though, considering their legacy as the 2-time reigning champs. But considering how badly they looked against the Fuel in the knockout round, I don't think they'll be as much of a problem this time. That said, never doubt in Coach Krusty, but Coach Rush has looked pretty okay too. Florida is another one that might raise some eyebrows as well. I don't think it's going to be very close, considering Dallas didn't really break against Shanghai at all in the playoffs. And Shanghai made it past Florida twice, so I think they should be okay. Again, hero pools could drastically change how each of these teams do, but now that the Dallas Fuel have added Pine to the roster, I can see them hanging in a lot more metas, which is saying something because they looked fine already. Next up is a team that a lot of people thought would be dominant at the start, but has really been quiet, and that's the Los Angeles Gladiators. The Gladiators face the Titans, the Reign, the Uprising, and the Eternal for their first matches in the June Joust. The only team in this list that I really see as competition for the Gladiators would be the Atlanta Reign, who are also fighting not to disappoint this season, but I think the matchups all still favor the Gladiators on paper. As for the other matchups, the Titans, the Uprising, and the Eternal, I think these are 3 of the bottom 4 teams in NA, and I think the Gladiators should have no issues with them. The only one that could be an issue would be the Boston Uprising, considering that those teams seem to always play it close. But I think the Gladiators have kind of broken away from that. I actually think, didn't they beat them in the May Melee qualifiers? I'm pretty sure they did. Anyway, on paper, this should be a 4-0 month for the Gladiators, and they definitely need it after a disappointing May Melee. And I would see them qualifying for the tournament, but we'll see. Now let's head over to APAC for the other 2 teams that I think benefit from a easier strength of schedule. Next up is actually going to be the runners-up from the May Melee, and that's going to be the Shanghai Dragons. Shanghai's schedule consists of Chengdu, Hangzhou, the LA Valiant, and the Seoul Dynasty. Despite dropping their regular season match to the Hunters, I think the Dragons had a much better showing in the playoffs than the Hunters did, making me think that if they played again, I think they'd be fine, and I think the Dragons should take it. As for the other 3 matches, I think Shanghai is just playing better Overwatch than the Spark, the Valiant, and the Dynasty are. The Dynasty is another one that could be close, but I think just Shanghai seems more stable right now. Yeah, I think this should be an undefeated stage for the Dragons, and they do tend to drop weird games occasionally, but I don't think it'll be here. I could see them going 4-0 and straight into the June Joust. Now, as for my last team that I think benefits from the new schedule, it's actually going to be the Philadelphia Fusion. Philly is playing the NYXL, the Chengdu Hunters, the Guangzhou Charge, and the LA Valiant. I think Chengdu should pose a challenge similar to how I think they will for Shanghai, but I think Philly did get that regular season win last month, and they've had more time to gel with the roster considering all the visa issues, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt to do it again. As for the NYXL, Charge, and Valiant games, I think Philadelphia is still about a tier break ahead of those other teams, and I think they should be fine, even if they do drop that match against Chengdu. That's a 3-1 stage, and I can still see them inevitably qualifying for the knockouts, to inevitably place in the June Joust, to inevitably get second once again. Just for you, Philly. So that does it. I think the Dallas Fuel, the Los Angeles Gladiators, the Shanghai Dragons, and the Philadelphia Fusion will all have the easiest schedule in the Overwatch League this month. Now, I don't necessarily think that these 4 teams are the best 4 teams in the Overwatch League. I actually think quite a few teams are better than the Gladiators and probably the Fusion right now. But I do think these are the 4 teams that aren't sweating their schedules as much as the rest of the league. Let me know what you guys think. And if you guys get this video to over 15 likes, I'll put out a hardest strength of schedule for you guys to point out the teams that I think will struggle during the June Joust qualifying matches. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe for more Overwatch League videos, and I'll see you guys around when I feel like uploading next. You guys have a good one. See ya.